Introducing National Streaming Sports, live and on-demand sports talk programming that you can access 24/7. Check us out on YouTube, Facebook, and X. And for the premier sports talk experience, tap into our Roku channel. Start your mornings with Mac and Jack covering all the weekend sports action. Then pour a cup and enjoy all the sports you can drink on the Coffee and Sports podcast. At midday, talk sports from east to west on the Coast to Coast podcast. Followed at night by some hot girl talk with Prim and Proper Sports featuring Sonia Pearson. Talk boxing on the Gloved Fist. Yankee fans tune in for Start Spreading the News. And there's more on the College Sports Huddle and Sports Scope with Robert Butler. And that's just a sampling. There are 20 podcasts in all and 70 weekly shows giving us a 3.4-star viewer rating. To find us on Roku TV, search for National Streaming Sports on the Roku search bar. Click on the logo and you're in. For laptops, mobile phones, and tablets, download the Roku app. National Streaming Sports, live and on-demand sports talk for.
This show is brought to you by BetUS.com. 125% off your first 3 deposits, 30 years experience, secure site, wagering for all sports, including during the games and futures. SeatGeek provides you the best prices on sports and music events, game tickets, and concerts. Use NSS promo code to get $20 off your first ticket. Keep using the NSS promo code when purchasing tickets for great deals in the future. In Fanatics at nessp.info for your favorite teams, sportswear. Click on the link, and while you're there, check out our national streaming sports merchandise.
If you like the sweet science, get ready to talk boxing on the Gloved Fist podcast with top boxing writers Frank Lotierzo and Jack Hirsch. Frank, a former amateur boxer out of Philadelphia, writes for NY Fights and can be seen on the Boxing Channel. Jack, an amateur boxer who competed in the New York Golden Gloves, was a 6-term president of the Boxing Writers Association. And now, here's Frank Lotierzo and Jack Hirsch.
And we're back. Welcome to Glove Fist. My name is Frank Lotierzo, former full-time observer. Still a full-time observer, Jack, but I miss the fight sometimes. But I end up buying the lousy ones. So I try to be a full-time observer, part-time writer, joined by former 6-term president Jack Hirsch of the former 6-time president of the Boxing Writers Association. Jack, I'm so tongue-tied because we finally have something to talk about. There's so many things going on in sports. My Dolphins are going to lose again tonight to go, 2-13 or 2-40, whatever. As I said, dysfunction, 20 years of ineptness, and yet the Eagles are getting hot, and I have to hear these cuckoos around here.
You know, our producer Max, a Giant fan. I'm a Jet fan. You're a Dolphin fan. You combine the record of the 3 teams. It's absolutely pathetic.
Not even 10 wins.
It wouldn't be that bad at the beginning of the year.
Jack, I'm not surprised at the Dolphins. I am a little bit surprised at the Jets, and the Eagles are who I thought they were. They finished too bad last year. There's too much talent on that team. And I never get my hopes up with the Eagles. And other than the Lions in the NFC, I don't know who would be favored over them. And in the AFC, Jack, we're done. Come on, we're done.
Yeah. Well, we have a lot of boxing talk here with the football. I'm a depressed Jet fan, so I'm not so into it, Frank. I need something to get rejuvenated. On that account, there's a exhibition Friday night, Frank. There's a fight Friday night. You want to review?
Is it a fight? Is it an exhibition?
Are you? Well, I'm not sure. What is it? Mike Tyson versus Jake Paul. Is it for real or what? People have been.
I don't believe that.
I have no answers.
Jack, I don't. First of all, 2-minute rounds, 14-ounce gloves. That's not a fight. No headgear, and you can win by stoppage. I just don't trust these guys, Jack, when they do these exhibitions. I think they make the rules as they go. I wouldn't be surprised if only the fighters know exactly what's going on. As we talked before the show, there are actually betting odds on this. Jake Paul is minus what? What did I say? 225 or 245? And Tyson is plus 195? How do you come up with that?
Well, I don't know. The closest thing we have to this is when Tyson boxed Roy Jones, and we still don't know whether that was real or not. It was real in the sense they worked hard, they were entertaining, but did they really go all out? Meaning,
I don't think so.
If one guy hurt the other guy, chances are both of them would have backed off. They wouldn't have gone all out. So maybe there's an understanding with Paul and Tyson that if Paul shakes Tyson up, he's going to kind of back off. But you know what's kind of telling to me that makes me a little more suspicious, Frank, are the personalities. Not so much Tyson. Tyson's an older guy now, close to 60. He's going to be quiet. He's going to be humble. He's
right.
not going to be. He's not going to try to be as intimidating as he once was. But Jake Paul, an arrogant, nasty guy, is actually being polite.
And what does that tell you?
It tells me it's not a real fight in the sense that he's going to go all out. Because if it was a real fight, there'd be tension and, he'd be talking about destroying Mike Tyson. He has said it, but he said it in like a calm way. Oh, yeah, this is going to end Mike's career. And when they'd have the press conferences, the two of them would try to look at one another a little intimidating, and then they would both be smiling. Like they had a hard time carrying out any act of animosity.
See, Jack, that makes me think the complete opposite. Because if it wasn't, if they both know it's somewhat of a work and they had the agreement, then that would be the perfect time to go crazy like a WWE press conference and threaten each other and do everything to build up the interest. Where if it's kind of real, I could see where they'd be a little bit more, reserved. So that makes me think, if I go by the way you see it, that projection makes me think that maybe there's a little more to it, since Paul may be a little bit on the edge and concerned about, it is Mike Tyson, even though he's almost 60 years old.
That's an X factor. Paul shouldn't be so worried because Tyson is close to 60. So why would he be so worried? But then again, this is a guy he idolizes, and maybe Paul is swallowing the poison as far as the hype goes, thinking, wow, this is Mike Tyson. He might still have his punch. What happens if he connects? I've never been in with anyone like him. Never mind that Tyson, it's been over 20 years since Tyson last fought. But you were mentioning something before the show, and I'm reassessing that now. You said, well, what does Paul have to gain? If you knock Tyson out, whatever, you gain nothing. You just knocked out an old guy. I think he could gain a lot marketability, not because of achievement, Frank, because he can make himself the biggest villain, knocking Tyson out. And let's say it's prearranged, and Tyson figures, look, I'm getting $15 million. They know I'm an old guy. Good luck to Jake. I want Jake to be successful. I like him. Let him, I'll go out. I'll lose this fight. And that Jake is then the biggest villain around. And maybe a guy like Canelo steps up. The Canelo who picks his spots and makes Jake fight him at a catch weight with Jake Paul he weighs about 190, I believe, normally.
Right.
Jake Paul would have to get down to 180 as a catch weight. And Canelo will figure he'll get up to 172. And Canelo will figure, I can handle this guy. This is easy money for me. And I avoid David Benavidez, Terrence Crawford, and I got a mega fight.
All right, let's go back to Crawford a little later in the show because I have some things to run by on that. Here's my thought on the fight or the show. Jack, I think it's going to end and it's going to be controversial, and neither guy is going to be deemed as the superior winner. And here's why. Jake Paul is a huge moneymaker. Okay. Huge moneymaker, brings a lot of attention and young people to boxing. And that's what we want because of the emergence of MMA. If Mike Tyson, who is 58 years old, goes in there and takes him apart, people are going to go back. They're going to look at Jake Paul's record. They're going to say he fought one real fighter in Tommy Fury and he lost. And here's Mike Tyson, a grandfather, gets off the rocking chair, comes in and beats him. So to me, if Paul gets beat overwhelmingly, he has no future. On the other hand, nobody wants to see a legend like Mike Tyson get beat up unmercifully by a 27-year-old guy. He gains nothing by doing that because, Jack, if he knocks Tyson out in the first round, people are going to say it was fixed or Tyson is just shot. He gets nothing by it. So I think at the end of the day, they're both going to come out winners in a way, like Robert Sugar said after Ali Frazier won, the winner was the loser was the winner. I think that's going to happen here. So then on Saturday, Jake Paul still has a draw and an appeal to younger guys because, hey, I wanted this on Mike Tyson and I won a split decision or I lost a split decision. And Mike Tyson, if he hangs in there and even if the decision goes against him, hey, I'm an old man. I'm a 58-year-old man. What am I doing in here with a 27-year-old guy? So I don't think for those reasons it's going to be conclusive. I'm a cynic, and I just think that money dictates. And if it's not conclusive, Jack, we have two guys that can be promoted the next day where if one beats the other guy up, we lose one.
I have another scenario I just thought of now, Frank, that might be better than the other one. Tyson wins sensationally in early knockout. Paul says, I've never been hit so hard. This guy is a killer, blah, 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 blah. Everyone gets excited. It's all over the news. Tyson demolishes Paul. Tyson now wants to fight, is willing to fight in Alexander Usyk. And you know one of the sanctioning bodies is going to okay it for the heavyweight title. And we find out that Jake Paul is Tyson's promoter. It was set beforehand. And Paul's figuring, I can make so much darn money. I'm going 50-50 with Mike going forward. And with the mega money he's going to generate with his excellency, you know, 250 million, I get 125 million there, far more than I'm making in my promotions.
Jack, I love you. I think that's crazy. If Mike Tyson knocks Jake Paul out in the first or second round, everybody's going to say, see, I told you he stinks. He beat up MMA fighters and a basketball player. He lost to one good boxer, and now he fights an old man who could come to the ring in a hover round, and he gets beat by him. I don't think there's anything Tyson can do to stimulate interest against him. For him and Usyk or Fury or even Holyfield. I just don't see it.
There's going to be a tremendous audience watching the fight. Is the reason it's on a Friday night, Frank, instead of the traditional Saturday night, because of college football, I guess. They didn't want to go with Saturday night because sports fans, for the most part, are paying attention to the college games. And it kind of might, I don't want to say slip under the radar, but they don't want it in the same boat. So you put it the night before, you know, in any college football games, the Friday night opposite.
There's nothing big going on Saturday night, right? What's going on Saturday night besides college football?
Right. That's why they don't want to put Tyson Paul there.
All right, so they get two nights out of the weekend instead of one. Okay.
Well, it's Netflix. It's on Netflix, so it makes some sense, a Friday night. And I wonder if we're ever going to get a scenario where we had, like in the past, like with Ali Frazier, one where big fights are going to be on a Monday night. You know, you got Monday Night Football, and but they would have to start.
No, I think
earlier.
The big fights now, Jack, are on Saturday night. I don't know why they didn't do it back then. And some of those big Ali fights were actually on a Tuesday or a Wednesday night, but there were some that were on a Monday night because they didn't want to go against a Monday Night Football. But yeah. I don't know why it's on Friday night. I mean, if you have Netflix, do you have to pay for it?
No. Not like a
Then where's the
pay-per-view on
money
Netflix.
coming from to pay these guys $20 million apiece?
I don't know.
They're fighting
Yeah,
at the Cowboy Stadium, right?
they are. It should be sold out. And I just don't know we don't know what Netflix paid for themselves and what they might. And Netflix is probably going to get a ton of new subscribers because if you don't have Netflix, you want to see the fight, you're going to subscribe to Netflix. And Netflix
Is there a big MMA card on Saturday night?
not that I know of. I don't.
I'm going
follow
to
the
check, Jack,
MMA.
as we're speaking.
Yeah, but Netflix is going to be about something like about $25.99 a month to subscribe to. So they're gonna get a lot of subscribers.
Okay.
There's a real. It's not a bad show all in all on Netflix. If you watch the whole Tyson Paul show, there's one great fight that slipped under the radar. Katie Taylor against Amanda Serrano. A rematch.
That's a rematch.
2.5 years ago. Yeah. And
That was their fight was 2.5 years ago.
2.5 years ago was a great fight because the women's fight.
Wow, that long ago.
Yeah, I'm going with Serrano to beat Taylor in the rematch. Close to.
I like Serrano too.
I think Katie Taylor has a lot of miles on her. So I think even though Serrano's only a couple of years younger, I think she's fresher than Katie Taylor.
That's exactly what I see based off their last fight against each other. I like Serrano too. Jack, let's talk about a guy that I didn't see live on Friday night, but I saw the fight the following day, and he's making a case for being one of the best offensive fighters. And before we get to that, so are you going to make a pick on Tyson?
Oh, yeah,
Paul?
I just want to say one thing. You'll get a kick out of this. This afternoon, I spent with Michael Spinks because I'm writing the book on him. But we took a little break because he did a podcast for 10 minutes with the WBC, and they asked him who he picked, Paul or Tyson. And he said Tyson still got his punch. I don't know how Michael would know that exactly, whether anyone knows what Tyson would have left. I would suspect not much at his age, but it remains to be seen. Pick on Tyson Paul. If the handcuffs are off and anything goes, Paul in 4 rounds.
Okay. I'm not going to pick a winner. I'm just going to say it's going to go the full amount. And if there's a decision, whoever the winner is, it's going to be a split decision. So both guys carry something. They take something away. But I can't pick a winner on something that I don't know is legit.
Well, yeah, we don't know whether it's legit, but let's say it's 100% legit. No funny business at all. At all. Both guys are going all out, regular fight. And the judges are completely legit. The ref, everything is on board. What would be your pick?
I would probably lean towards Paul, for I think Tyson has to get him early, and if he doesn't, then he'll just be he'd probably just be a stand-up punching bag. But he might be able to get him early if it's legit. But I can't fathom that.
It's 2-minute rounds, though, Frank. To keep that in mind, so it's like 16 minutes and it's an 8-round fight. So it's 16 minutes of actual fighting compared to 36 minutes. That's the real championship distance.
Tyson could have 1 or 2 rounds in him, Jack. I think that's about it. If it was legit, I'd favor Paul, but I don't think it's legit.
Yeah, I kind of agree with you, but we'll see. That's part of the intrigue, Frank, too.
Do you think it's going to do a big number?
Staged, you want to know something? Even if it's staged, it's like the WWE is supposed to be sports entertainment. So this is entertainment as far as I'm concerned.
Right.
And even if it's all staged and they put on a great show, you go with it.
You think it'll do a big number as far as the buys go?
I have to believe it will.
More than like a Canelo fight?
Listen, I haven't heard the fight go off the rails yet, but it's Monday. The fight's a few days away. or you just need a couple of days for the word to get all over, and then people hear, oh, Mike Tyson's fighting tonight. Listen, even with this, my son-in-law never comes over to watch a boxing match. He's coming over to me. My next door neighbor, I found
It's
out, is a
crazy.
boxing fan.
It's crazy. I know.
Hasn't been over my place yet, but I see him and tell him. He says, "Oh yeah, we're on. I'm coming over." Like they're like it's like party time. It's like it's oh man,
It's crazy. I've had a couple buddies contact me too that don't usually contact me for boxing, but they want to know what I think of this and where I'm going to watch it. And it's like, it's just crazy. It just goes to show sizzle sells. We don't need substance.
Yeah.
But speaking of substance, Keyshawn Davis fought Friday night. And let me tell you something, Jack. I think Keyshawn Davis is already one of the best offensive fighters in the game. And I think his KOs of Pedraza and Lemos last Friday night, I think it puts him big time. And we're going to be hearing from this kid because he's really good.
Well, a lot was made about Lemos coming way over the weight. He was supposed to get down to 135 and it was 141 and a half. And
he still killed him.
That indicates to you he knew he wasn't going to make the weight, but he still trained. I mean, it's like he couldn't make the weight, but if he said he couldn't make the weight, he wouldn't have gotten the fight. Okay?
Right.
The
never stopped before.
Right. First round was actually competitive. He chased Keyshawn Davis, and it could have gone either way. I gave an edge to Davis. But then the second round, it's over in a minute and 8 seconds. I mean, Davis looks sensational the way he blitzed.
What an accurate puncher from any range.
Yeah, but let's wait. And he called out Tank after the fight. Let's hold off a second as far as Tank goes. Tank is 100% different proposition from what he faced in the ring. Denis Berinchik, the Ukrainian fighter who upset Emmanuel Navarrete, who's a belt holder, that's more logical. That's
probably what we'll see.
That's definitely a winnable fight. Not an easy fight, I don't think, but you'd have to go with Davis in a matchup like that.
I would like to see Davis and Tank down the road because I think Davis could hurt Tank, even though I would pick Tank right now.
Yeah, down the road, but I mean, we've been guilty, or I've been guilty of getting a little too carried away with great performances, and then you kind of come down to earth, like David Benavidez. I'm thinking, he'll spit Canelo out. He's too big, too strong, and then he fights Vodzik, and he looks human. Even though he wins decisively and still you could say looks good, but he wasn't necessarily a monster. And then of course, we'll talk later, Boots Ennis. I'm thinking, Boots has a great shot at beating Terrence Crawford. And then you see Boots last Saturday. He did okay, but I wouldn't think of him right now as a pound for pound candidate. Maybe he's going to be one, at some point, and maybe even top of the heap. Who knows? But I saw your post about you feeling he regressed a little. But rather than saying Boots regressed, maybe we got a little carried away about Boots. He's a tremendous fighter. He has big wins in him going forward. But Terrence Crawford at his best, he would have knocked Boots out last Saturday.
I hope Mac can hear this because Mac has been on the Boots bandwagon, and I've tried to tell him he's not beating Bud.
Well,
not now, anyhow.
In fairness to Mac, we had evaluated Boots Ennis about 6 months ago, his chances against Crawford, and you and I were coming to the conclusion, we like Bud 60-40, 65-35, meaning we were giving Boots a legitimate chance of beating Crawford, even though we agreed he would be the underdog. We would give Crawford an edge. He was very alive in that fight, Boots.
I would, Jack, look, Boots is really good, so of course he has a chance.
Yeah.
But I never flirted with the idea that he would beat Bud. So we've put Keyshawn, in perspective, a little too early for Tank. Looked great. Great offensive fighter. Now let's go to the Bud card, or to the Boots card. Let's get Bam Rodriguez out of the way, Jack, because there's a guy that's making a really good case. You'd have to look hard to find a better performance than he put on the other night. Total, like as I posted, total search and destroy mission. Guy cuts off the ring great, throws punches from all angles, doesn't need room to punch. Great footwork. He beat a good fighter in Guevara, who's had a long career, never been knocked out, and he couldn't go 3 rounds with Bam. Bam is a superstar on the way up. I think they're going to start talking about Inouye. I think he's too small for him, but in his weight class, in those couple pounds, he's a factor.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned Inouye's name, because Inoue is rated one of the 3 best fighters pound for pound in boxing, and there are a good number of people who are going to rate Inoue number 1.
Right.
And it has merit what they're saying.
Absolutely.
But you compare Bam Rodriguez, his opposition to Inouye's, and how both guys have performed. I can make a very strong case that Bam should be rated ahead of Inoue in a pound for pound listing. Just
Jack,
compare their opponents. I think Bam's fought the harder opposition on balance.
Well, the other side of that, Jack, is somebody else would say that that's because Inoue has made his opposition look a little less stellar. Hey, Little Holmes, what's up? They'll say that Inoue he's just sort of the argument I make for Crawford, where like his opposition is better than people think, but he's Secretariat and he's just like so much ahead of them that it makes it look like they're inept.
And Inoue got knocked down, okay, and one of his titles, and he was hurt. Bam's also hit the deck, but hasn't been hurt when he got knocked down. But Inoue has a home country behind him, Japan. There's more charisma there with Inoue right now, at least. He's the more charismatic guy. Inoue reminds you a little of Otani in a sense. A sensation from Japan coming here. And Bam is kind of just did it the hard way, worked his way up, but he's been dominant. He's been
I just hope they don't match them, Jack, because I do think that Inoue is too big. But I can see it being a big draw.
Yeah, but listen, in the past, there would have been 1 weight division apart.
True. But boy, I'll tell you, Inoue looks like he's really filling out. I haven't seen that from Bam yet, but Inoue looks like he's filling out. But if they're the same size, and you could boil them to the same size or build Bam up, I actually could see a case where he might even be the better fighter.
Yeah,
and I think you would agree with that.
Yeah, but I don't know. Inoue, he's sensational. Bam's outstanding, and it would be a bit of a dream fight. It would remind me a little bit of the matchup if they ever fought Salvador Sanchez against Wilfredo Gomez. That was a super matchup going, and we didn't know how gone Gomez was, with the substance abuse problems. Had we known that, it wouldn't have been as appealing a fight that Gomez.
And I think Gomez was a slight favorite in that fight, wasn't he?
I believe so, but we didn't know Gomez's state, how he really was going into the fight.
Jack, we talk what if sometimes.
Yeah, what if?
Salvador Sanchez, what if he didn't tragically die at age 23? What kind of a future would he have had? And look at the work he got done just in 2 years as a champ. 9 title defenses, cleaned out everybody except for Pedroza, and that fight probably would have happened, but everybody speculates how far could Sanchez have gone at one time. Even when he was alive, there was talk of him and Aguayo. Boy, we really got cheated by that man, dying so tragically.
He would have added to his legend, but I don't get as carried away as other people. And I'll give you a case in point. He fought another great fighter who Sanchez is rated ahead of, Azuma Nelson, okay? He stopped him in the 15th round. Nelson came in on one, and it was an even fight going into the 15th round. And then Sanchez got him out of there. What happens had Azuma had a full training camp? He may have
I
won
think,
the fight or could have gone either way.
Jack, I don't think as great as Azuma was. I don't think at 126 he would have been Sanchez's equal. He was dropped in. He was dropped earlier in the
but
fight.
that one fight. I'm going to throw two what ifs at you, which annoy me. Okay, Ibuchi. He was back in the news or something. He wants a shot at the title. Crazy stuff recently. What happens if Ike didn't get in trouble with the law?
That's another great one, Jack.
Definitely. We don't know, but we have two fights to go on, Frank. Two fights.
Bird and Tua.
Bird, he was sensational. Anyone who could stop Bird in 5 rounds the way he did, that was an awesome achievement. It reflected Ibuchi was a powerhouse, but he barely got by David Tua. And
that was one of the best Tuas we ever saw, Jack.
Right. But I'm saying, you look at the other great heavyweights, David Tua is not beating them, for the most part. I understand he had a style advantage against Tyson if they ever met, based on style.
No, I understand. No, he's not as good of a fighter as Tyson.
I wouldn't have picked Tua to beat Holyfield. Holyfield's
No.
best. Yeah, I wouldn't have picked him to beat Lennox Lewis, and he didn't.
Jack, here's what I'll say about Ibuchi. At the time, you could make a case that Chris Bird was the best boxer in the heavyweight division. No one figured out how to cut the ring off on him. Ibuchi did it, and he beat Chris up pretty overwhelmingly. Then he fights Tua, who you could make a case was the biggest puncher with the best chin in the division. Now, look, I had Tua winning that fight 6-5-1, but I don't have an issue with the decision. But he hung in there with Tua, and they set a record for punches. And if he could hang in there with Tua, that tells me something, because it wasn't like they were boxing. They were fighting at a very high level. And as far as Tua goes, I mean, Lennox Lewis beat Tua more overwhelmingly than Ibuchi did. But I'll tell you what, Jack, I agree with you. I don't like when these guys rate Ibuchi so high, but what we saw in those 20 fights, I mean, he might have beaten both Klitschko's. I don't think that's out of the question.
No, it's not out of the question. No. Well, the closest comparison I could make, if he went against Vladimir Klitschko, was Samuel Peter, who was, a very powerful fighter when Klitschko met him, and he knocked.
But Jack, if I was saying that, you'd be going, "Oh no, Frank." Ibuchi was so much better than Peter. Ibuchi was a good boxer. Peter was just a big puncher.
I'll give you that. We don't know what would have happened. Yeah. He may have beaten the Klitschko's. Okay, I mean, I don't know. I don't want to.
I'm not saying, Jack. I'm not saying he would have, but I think
the biggest what if. But the biggest what if was maybe Tony Ayala. Okay, I don't want to hear this, that he would have beaten Sugar Ray Leonard. He would have beaten this guy. Would have beaten that guy. He didn't fight anyone to resemble those guys. Yes, had Tony Ayala not went to jail, and had he fought Davey Moore, he would have stopped Davey Moore, and he would have looked really good doing it, okay? But I'm not sure he would have beaten the 1983 version of Roberto Duran.
And there was talk of that fight happening.
Right, Duran was a master ringman, and if Duran came into the ring in tip-top shape, maybe Ayala wins a decision. I don't know, but he's not destroying Duran.
I can't be objective with a Yellow Jack, because I was around him somewhat, and I watched him spar and I watched him train, and all I can say is this. I believe at the time when there was talk of him fighting Davey Moore or Duran, I remember thinking that he'll beat both of them. Now, that was kind of Duran in a low period. Duran didn't resurrect himself until Davey Moore.
Yeah, yeah. But
So,
but
I mean, but
Boots
that's
should
a
get
that's
the
a big
time
what if.
off. But what, but the point is this: before Saturday night, let's say hypothetically, Boots Ennis could never fight again. He would have been one of the great big ifs. Oh, what potential! No one was going to beat this guy. This guy was going to on the way to being a superstar. You don't know. And then Boots fights Saturday. He wins decisively. I was alarmed by the amount he got hit, Frank. Elite fighters don't take those type of hooks continuously. I can understand the first round you get maybe hit a few times and then you make the adjustments, don't get hit again. I can accept that to a point, but he was getting hit throughout the fight. And the reason he won so decisively and over the distance, I might add, was because of his offensive firepower. But I
He's a
saw the
great offensive
flaws in
fighter.
him defensively. But I didn't like the way he was getting hit. Now, his opponent was fired up, for the fight. I understand all that, but Boots never should have been getting hit that way. He at least should have avoided most of those punches. Maybe if he got muscled around against a fired up opponent, that's fine. I can understand that. But you don't get hit like that. Come on. That's alarming.
Jack Chukahazen, or however you say his name, I call him Chukaku.
Yeah.
He was determined. He changed his style completely. I think Boots was thrown off by that. But here's what bothered me about Boots. The fact that not only did he get hit a lot, but he got hit with lead punches. He didn't even have to, Chukaku didn't even have to throw combinations. He hit him with lead punches. And to me, that tells me one of two things. He fought very lazy, or he was overconfident and cocky and didn't feel that he could be hurt and said, I'll let him get one. So he's committed so I can get my offense off on him. And that was the difference. And the guy showed he had a really good chin. I don't know how big of a puncher he is, but Boots' defense was alarming. I don't think he'd be that lazy against a Crawford or a Virgil Ortiz, but that was an issue that everybody's talking about. And Jack, the other thing I think is an issue that no one is talking about is I didn't like his corner. And maybe he needs to make a change because I think his father berating him after every round without giving him instruction kind of got him down a little bit. And maybe they've come as far as they can go.
Yeah, but his father maybe took him this far. Frank,
Bring
sometimes I
somebody in,
wonder
Jack.
sometimes I wonder how important instructions are. I think these fighters are intelligent. They're in the ring. They see what's not working, and it's best that they figure it out themselves. I mean, you want to guide them when you can, give them suggestions when you're in the corner.
You don't give them a lot in the corner, Jack, because they don't hear it.
Yeah,
you don't want to give them a lot in the corner.
No, but when a fighter gets back to the corner, I think more important than technical advice, let them try to relax and regroup that minute and work on them a little mentally if you can, if you could have an influence. If it's a close round, say, yeah. You're getting them with the jab when you throw it. You're right, not to give them too much.
Because Jack, they don't hear it, but you got to make a point that there's something that when the bell rings for the next round, they take that out there and at least see little tweaks make a big difference. I think Boots should have jabbed a little bit more, but he was looking for the home run. And because he's so good offensively, I really do think that had a little bit to do with his defense being so porous. The fact that he wasn't getting hurt and he wanted to knock out this time. He wanted to separate himself from this guy. And Jack, here's the other thing too. Look, there's no doubt who the better fighter is, who has more skills, who's the more world-class guy. But there are those sometimes, and it's working out where a lot of these European guys with a little bit of their crazy styles and head movement, they can give you trouble. And everybody, Jack, every great fighter has had a couple guys in their career that they couldn't dominate. Ali couldn't dominate
Well, no,
Norton.
Boots dominated the fight. No, I don't want to say dominated. He won big. He won big.
Jack, he won.
Way,
all the rounds were close, but he won most of them closely.
Did you see who?
So on the scorecard, it's big.
But
in the ring, did he really dominate him? He just was a little better offensively.
Yeah, I understand where you're coming from. Maybe dominate's the wrong word. You know,
I think a guy like Ortiz would look better against him than Boots did because of his style. But I also know that there are just some guys, as I was saying, that they just give you a hard time. Ali had Norton, Marciano had Lowry, Frazier had Bonavina. None of those guys are as good as the great guys he gave a hard time to.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
Kukacharin is nowhere near Boots' league, Jack, but he knows how to fight him.
Could this have been a blessing in disguise for Boots? Now a guy like Virgil Ortiz might fight him. Even Ryan Garcia, did you see, was calling Boots out after the fight?
I would love that fight.
Was Garcia serious, or was he taking a cheap shot? After a fighter performs under par, his opponents who've been ducking him come out of the woodwork and say, you see, I told you you're nothing at all. And they laugh at you because they have an opportunity. Not that Boots did anything to be laughed at, but he looked beatable for the first time. Let's put it that way. And
I agree with that, but not by Ryan Garcia.
But the way Garcia's calling him out, and my first thought was, Garcia's too small. But then I remembered he couldn't really make 140. See, he is a welterweight when you think of it. A small welterweight, but he's a welterweight, and Boots is a big welterweight, but they can both make 147. Garcia can tell Boots you have to make one. Yeah.
Do you remember what
Garcia to do? Yeah.
Do you remember what Tank did to Garcia?
Oh, he made him cut weight bad. Yeah.
But I mean the way he took him apart when they fought. If he fights Boots Ennis, he'll look like he was wearing a cape. The way Ennis will go through him, he'll go through him. He'll knock him out. He'll destroy him. I don't think we ever see that fight. I think Ryan Garcia is too smart. He better pick on Teofimo.
I would love to see your reaction, Frank. I'd be more entertained by you than the boxing itself. If Garcia signed to fight Boots, but he made Boots get down to 145, contracted to fight at 145. Boots
that would really bother me.
He starts himself, and then Garcia comes in at 151. 149. After.
I'll make this proclamation right now. If they fight and there's no catch weight, Ryan Garcia has a 1% chance, 1 in 100 to beat Boots. Not only will he lose, he'll get knocked out in an impressive fashion.
He's too good a fighter to get that carried away and say he has no chance. I mean, I would go with Boots, but I don't want to write Garcia. I wrote him off against Devin Haney. And I thought Haney at one time was a generational talent. And I know I don't want to hear, with the weight, with the this, with the that. The bottom line is, the fight took a lot out of Haney because he hasn't been back in the ring since. Who's coming back? Well, he's kind of been back a little bit a while ago, Conor Benn. Now, Conor Benn, I mean, what a fool. He thinks his name has been cleared with the drug accusations. It hasn't been cleared. With the commission in the UK, they kept him, the British Boxing Board kept him out of action a while. But of course, you have all these groups who are saying, maybe we should have gotten a little more evidence. It's obvious with Conor Benn. I mean, who's he fooling? Conor Benn reminds me, he reminds me of one of the players, who's claiming something and everyone believes something else. Listen, I hope Conor Benn is telling the truth. I don't know for sure what he did and what he didn't do, and I'm not accusing him of anything. But why wasn't he allowed to fight for so long? Why would the British Boxing Board pick on him? That's what I want to know.
I don't know. I can't. I can't answer that.
But
And I have to admit, Jack.
If he fights Chris,
Okay, what were we going to say?
if he fights Chris Eubank Jr., it would do great business in the UK. And that's the fight he wants. You know, they want badly. Eddie Hearn wants badly. You know, it's good for business. Because where else are both guys going to go?
But they're also talking about Ben fighting Boots, right?
Conor Benn against Boots?
Didn't I see that? Or is it Eubank? One of them was I saw mentioned as a possible. Oh, no, wait. No.
Canelo and
Eubank is supposed to fight. Okay, yeah, that's it. Canelo.
Eddie Reynolds has said they have no interest in fighting Eubank because he was so difficult to deal with. They don't want to know from him.
Right.
Now, I can see that point. You know, if you don't have to fight a guy and he's impossible at the negotiating table and he ticks you off, you might figure, the heck with this guy. I just don't want to fight this guy unless I'm absolutely forced to.
I agree. But back to Boots. I wouldn't write him off, and I'm not saying that you are. I do think he was in with a guy that had a little bit of a style issue, changed his style, probably threw him off a little bit, a learning experience. But yeah, some of the shine comes off Boots a little bit. I still think he's one of the great, the best prospects out there. He was overshadowed by Bam that night, but Boots is still one of the big prospects out there. And I still wouldn't be surprised if he goes on to win titles at 54 and 60.
I think last Saturday basically showed us that Boots is human. He's not
right. Well, they're all human, Jack.
Yeah, they're all human, but the thought was, this Boots might turn into one of the greatest fighters of all time, conceivably. He's that good. And now we're seeing, he's going to, win fights down the road. He could win a couple more titles down the road, but it's not like Boots is going to head the list necessarily, in and around his weight classes. But listen, and what I didn't like after the fight, Boots talked about moving up to junior middleweight. It was like he was discouraged, like he was looking for an excuse. Oh, I think it's about time I move up to junior middleweight. I mean, I didn't hear him talk about that much before the fight. I didn't hear him call out Sebastian Fundora, before this fight. Okay, but now, he wants to move up to junior middleweight, and, so be it. But Boots is bullying a Crawford, calling him out. He lost that momentum. Had Boots wanted to fight big, he could have called Crawford out and put a lot of pressure on Crawford, or made Crawford
we'll never see those two fight.
The way Benavidez has made Canelo look bad by not fighting him. But now, if Boots is saying, "Oh, Crawford's ducking me, this and that," we kind of brush it off a little and we figure, listen, Boots, you didn't look so great to start claiming, Crawford's ducking you.
Right. But I think Crawford realizes everybody has those nights. And speaking of Crawford, who sent out some encouragement to Boots, are we ever going to see Bud fight again?
I like Bud, but I'm tired of his inactivity. I'm waiting for Bud to be beat. He's unbeaten, and we kind of both know he's probably getting beaten at some point. And
if he continues to fight, he's definitely going to lose.
We don't know how much he's losing, with skill-wise with his inactivity.
Well, is it a fact that Jack, if he doesn't get Canelo, he's done? Because I've read where a lot of people believe if he doesn't get the Canelo fight, he's done fighting.
Yeah, it's something that I thought about too. I get the feeling with Bud can actually walk away. I get the feeling it's not a negotiating ploy. He's very happy in Omaha. I could see him becoming a trainer, loves hanging out in the gym. Bud's the type of guy, there are no airs about him. I could see him retiring and working with amateur boxers, a kid coming in off the street, and Bud training him. He doesn't. You couldn't see that with the Sugar Ray Leonard because there were all these airs about him. I see Little Holmes. Remember Breland versus Starling? The commentator said Mark will be the next Sugar Ray Robinson KO 11. I'll tell you, Little Holmes, Mickey Duff, one of the all-time great promoters from England, okay, in the past, when Breland was on the way up and Breland stopped one of his guys, he said, Mark Breland is so great, he might even turn out to be greater than Sugar Ray Robinson. That was Mickey Duff. He thought Breland was really the full package. And I saw Breland a good number of times as an amateur in New York. He was incredible. But somehow you lose something sometimes even at a young age. And Breland lost something during the Olympic Games. He was still formidable, won the gold medal, and his career wasn't a failure. He did win a couple of sanctioning body belts, but it was a disappointment compared to what, we thought it could be or what expectations were.
I liked him, Jack. I never looked at him as like the next Leonard or Hearns the way I did Donald Curry. I thought Breland was outstanding. His chin and his build bothered me a little bit, and I worried about him getting clipped by big shots. We saw him get stretched. I mean, Starling caught him with a unbelievable shot to finish him. But I thought, Breland was good. I just thought something was missing. And I never was quite that sold on him. I didn't know Mickey Duff said that. That surprises me a little bit. Curry's my biggest miss, Jack. Curry, as long as I've been watching boxing.
He's a Hall of Famer. Donald Curry made the International Boxing Hall of Fame.
Is he an all-time great?
If you want to look at it, no, absolutely not.
I thought he'd be an all-time great.
Well, let me throw this at you. Curry at his peak for the year and a half or so, approximately, he was at his peak, or 2 years or whatever, that short little window.
83 to 85.
83 to 85. You have an all-time welterweight tournament. He's got a shot against anyone those 2 years. I don't think he beat Sugar Ray Leonard, don't get me wrong, but he's got a shot at beating anyone.
Jack, that Curry from 83 to 85, I really did think could live with anybody. And I thought, because I knew they were never going to fight, but I really did think when Curry was long retired, shows like this, we would have a conversation about, well, who would have won, Curry or Leonard? I mean, today it's ridiculous to have that conversation. But for a while, I thought that conversation was out there. And I also thought was in the conversation with Hearns. And as we get the further away we get away from that group, Jack, the better they look. We knew at the time how great they were. But don't you think the further out that we get from Leonard and Hearns, we know what Duran was, we know what Hagler was, but Leonard and Hearns as welterweights, the further out we get, to me, the better they look.
Yeah, you kind of remind me of a funny line with Jerry Cooney. He'd say after the Holmes fight, long after, every time I keep looking at the film from the fight, I keep looking better and better. And I kidded Jerry, and I said that to him, and I said, Jerry, I refuse to watch you fight Holmes anymore. I've seen you fight him so many times on tape, and you keep looking better and better. If I watch it one more time, you might actually win. So he was cracking up, like over that. But McCrory, I mean, I have a theory, Frank. We maybe overrate guys, and we may have did this with Keyshawn Davis. Maybe. How the opponents fall. If Keyshawn Davis's opponent Lemos fell in sensational fashion on his back, the way he crashed, and the way Curry knocked out Milt McCrory, right on the button to punch, the way he fell and went out, we might get a little carried away with the opponent's body language. Just
Jack,
a
but
little theory I have.
Curry was so technical and pinpoint perfect. And again, with Keyshawn Johnson or Keyshawn Davis,
Playing football,
we're not
Frank,
saying that he's
different
great.
things.
I'm just saying that he is an outstanding offensive fighter with a lot of potential. We won't know until his career is over, because how many guys has that been said about? And it actually is kind of a disservice to them, but sometimes they look so good that, you do get a little bit caught up in it. We got caught up with Boots a little bit, Lomachenko. Who else
Oh
recently?
no, Lomachenko at his best was great. He wasn't exposed at his best. He did lose to
No, I'm not saying
Teofimo
he's exposed, but some guys are
Lopez.
saying he's better than Willie Pep.
No, not career-wise, obviously, but
No.
Lomachenko at the window at his very, very best. Maybe he was.
At
Maybe he was
130,
at his
he's as
very
good as
best.
anybody we've seen. Lomachenko at
Right, that's what
130,
I'm
which was
trying
his
to
best
say.
weight. Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
Manny Pacquiao is going to be rated ahead of Lomachenko when all is said and done. Okay? But if you put Manny against Lomachenko, the two of them at their very best, I would go with Lomachenko. Pacquiao
Oh,
throws
I'd love to
punches
see
in
that.
bunches, but Lomachenko created these crazy angles and made you miss, and he threw so many punches back at you too. You know,
I would like
and
to see that, Jack. I don't know what weight you're talking about, but
I
let's say
guess it would
Lomachenko
have
is
had
at
to
his
be at
best at 130.
130.
That would be, I don't know who I take there. They both deserve the
Yeah.
benefit of the doubt, because Pacquiao, Jack, his speed, his power, he's disruptive. Lomachenko likes to push you forward or push the fight. I don't know if he could push Pacquiao back. That would be off the hook.
Frank, quick question now for fun, because you like to talk football, so we could talk boxing and football together. Is there a boxer out there, if you had to guess, that could be turned into an NFL player, and at what position? Not counting field goal kicker, because I'm sure some of the pro boxers have played some soccer in the country and can kick the football and can make an adjustment as a field goal kicker, or maybe even as a punter, as a non-kicker. Is there anyone out there who could actually play the game? Can Tyson Fury be trained for 2-3 years into being an offensive lineman? A guy who's big
I
enough.
think they'd probably make him a tight end, Jack. Well, don't you? He'd
Well,
be
you
like
don't
a
know their
Gronk or something
hands.
like that. I don't know if he. They say he's strong. I don't know if he has football strength. I was thinking a guy like Daniel Dubois, maybe. They might be
Yeah.
able to find a place for him. Maybe he could be, bulk up, be a linebacker. I don't know how fast he is, so I'm not going to say he could be a running back, but somebody like that. I'm sure there's a couple. Vince Lombardi said Ali would have been a perfect tight end.
No, Ali hated the contact, that type of contact. He was okay with contact in the ring. We could avoid
Right.
punches. No, he got hit once in a while. Ali said football was too rough for him. He wouldn't like getting hit in the knees, tackled, guys jumping on top of him. We only have a minute to talk. I used to kid on the past show, and I wonder what most boxers would have taken. I used to kid when we had Jim Jeffcoat on the show. I said if I was a judge and had to give someone if someone was getting a prison sentence, if I was the attorney of the person getting sentenced, and the judge said your client has a choice, he has to cut over the middle and he'll get creamed, right over the middle for a pass, and waiting there someone like Ray Lewis to clothesline him with all their might to smash him, or he has to be on the bottom of the pile for the football for 1 minute, and everyone on top of him thinks he has the ball, and they're doing everything in their power to abuse him to get the ball.
Did you ever ask
what
Jim?
would you do, Frank? Would you take the one hit to knock you out cold, or would you get tortured on the bottom of the pile? They all think after football, they're hitting you in the windpipe, your private parts, chopping
I'd
you.
probably take the hit,
banging
Jack,
in the
because I'm
ribs.
claustrophobic. I don't want to be on the bottom of the pile. Did Jim ever say did he ever say anything about boxing? If he ever would like to box, or do you think he could?
Jim talked about it. Jim Jeffco talked about it. We're getting towards the end. He said he went to the gym and,
With two tall?
with one of the other players, not too tall, Jones, who was close with him, and got put through a boxing workout. He said he was like nothing they ever went through. They were exhausted. And this is when they were in football shape. They were training. They said, man, that was like exhausting for them.
Two different kinds of shape. And
So
Jack,
that's
real quick,
basically
I
it.
just found a
Hey, good
pic.
luck. Quick prediction. We gotta get off now. Dolphins or Rams, who are you picking tonight?
I picked the Dolphins to lose every week, and I'm not going to change this week.
I'm picking the Rams on a field goal as time expires. Okay.
All right,
see you
Jack.
next week, Frank.
Good time.
Take care.